Introduction. Everyone is looking for a silver bullet these days. They're looking for that one simple trick that can change their lives and make everything better, that will make them feel more energetic, more attractive, and more successful. Because, let's face it, life can be something of a slog for most of us. We wake up in the morning feeling tired and not wanting to haul ourselves out of bed. Then we drag ourselves to work through busy, stressful commutes. And then we force our way through a long, hard day. When we get home, we usually feel too tired and depressed after a work week to do anything worthwhile. And so we just crash out in front of the couch. Many people struggle with feelings of low self-esteem, of depression, and of loneliness on top of this. We're constantly connected, but many of us feel that we struggle to make real, worthwhile connections. Is there really one simple trick that can turn that all around? That can give you a new lease on life and help you to feel like $1,000,000? Well, I'm here to tell you that there is. And it's perfectly obvious when you think about it. The simplest way to turn your life around and to feel the best you've ever felt is to get rid of that belly fat. If you're currently living with a mushroom top, dad bod, or just a spare tire around your waist, then it is dragging you down more than you can possibly know. How belly fat makes everything worse. Of course, we all know that belly fat can ruin your confidence. Having a gut is simply not attractive, whether you're male or female. And it's something that is going to make you feel a whole lot worse about yourself as a result. Having a gut doesn't just get rid of any chance you might have stood of having a six-pack. It also ensures that you look like a stuffed potato, whatever clothes you wear. It's immensely hard to put on a great shirt or dress and to leave the house feeling like $1,000,000 when you have a massive gut hanging out. More than that, though, a gut signals generally poor health. This suggests that you are less active, and what normally goes along with that is a general lack of tone and definition that can be seen everywhere from your arms to your face. Women, do you remember when you used to feel light, petite, and strong? Like a toned and honed Amazonian, ready for business, and enjoying all the stares coming your way? Guys, do you remember what it felt like to have a dominating presence in the room? To have looked slightly like an athlete in your clothes, and to have the look of a predator? To be an alpha male, and to look fantastic in nearly every outfit you wore? Having a gut changes your posture too. It forces you into a more forward position that slumps your shoulders forward and closes off your chest. This is a submissive stance that sends a loud signal to others that you aren't confident and that you don't need to be taken seriously. Women, meanwhile, can expect to look frumpy and tired. Having a gut transforms you from the bottom up and brings you screaming into middle age. It suggests that you've stopped trying and affects your very body language, which of course has a deep psychological impact. Then there are the direct results of getting into better shape. Of course, your sex life will improve, and I'm not just talking about for single people. Obviously, picking up women or men becomes much easier when you look healthy and sexy, but you'll also find your relationship improves. How would you feel about your partner if they became more toned and sexy? Or conversely, if they gained lots of weight quickly? And then there's the way that a belly can impact your libido, or lack thereof. If you're not having sex, then losing the gut might be the answer. And guess what? Getting into lean shape can improve your salary too. Studies show that employers are more likely to employ or promote people who are in better physical shape. On average, men and women who are more toned earn higher salaries. And that's before we have even touched on the direct psychological consequences of carrying a belly around. Because as soon as you grow that gut, you're going to start producing significantly more stress hormones such as cortisol, which will increase depression and rob you of energy. Of course, that gut drastically increases your likelihood of developing a number of different conditions as well. This also creates something of a vicious cycle. The increase in cortisol and in stress increases your likelihood of gaining more weight and encourages stress eating. Not only that, but it also makes you significantly less energetic and makes it harder for you to engage in healthy activities such as exercise. In other words, having a belly makes it much harder to get rid of a belly. And that's before you take into account the fact that you're now moving around with a large tub of lard attached to your gut. Let's face it, you are not in your prime, and athletic activities probably aren't your strong suit right now. But imagine if they were. And that's what we're going to start fixing in this video course. I haven't even touched on all the ways that belly fat can lead to depression, further weight gain, low self-esteem, and even serious health conditions. If none of these other reasons is going to provide enough motivation, then simply consider that a belly will increase your likelihood of cancer, diabetes, stroke, heart disease, and more. So yes, this really is the one thing that you can do to change your entire life. If you look after your body, it looks after you. And now, we're going to see how you can make that positive change happen. How did it get like this? If you're going to fix this belly problem, then perhaps the best place to start is by asking how it got this way in the first place. What series of events led you to gaining the weight and letting yourself go? Perhaps with that knowledge, we can then reverse the process and get back on track. I'm speculating here, but I'm going to take a stab at how you found yourself with this unwanted flab. Because for most of us, we weren't always that way. Most of us were fairly toned and fit when we were in our younger years. But then things changed. We got older, and then we started to get more tired. Hormones don't help. Hormones make our metabolism slow down as we get past 25, and suddenly it becomes much harder to keep the belly fat off. Not only that, but we start spending more and more time at work in the office and pouring more and more energy into that work. Then we get married, get a mortgage, have kids. Suddenly the amount of free time we have to ourselves dwindles down to almost nothing. If we aren't changing nappies, answering angry phone calls after hours, coming home late, or doing the dishes, we're crashed out on the sofa, exhausted. And stress is another thing that can contribute to weight gain. Stress increases cortisol. Cortisol makes us hungry, and it stimulates lipogenesis, or fat storage. Gradually, our gym regime takes a back seat, and soon after that, our diet takes a back seat too. We start eating what is convenient and affordable, and slowly life chips away at our fitness. And it doesn't seem like a big deal either. But as we've seen, it really is, because it starts to have an effect in every other aspect of your life. If you can take back control of your gut, you can take back control of your life. So how are you going to get it back? The problem is energy, not time. Let's take a closer look at this issue and see what it really boils down to. Now, a lot of people will tell you it comes down to time. They aren't in shape because they don't have time to be in shape. Is this accurate though? I would argue not, because if you are like most people, then you have somehow still managed to watch an awful lot of TV series. Maybe you recently completed the latest season of Game of Thrones. And then there's a simple fact that you could wake up earlier. And there's a fact that, if we're going to be completely honest here, eating healthy doesn't take that long. In fact, it's very quick and easy to eat a salad, or to eat whatever you're going to eat tonight without the chips. The problem isn't that you don't have time to work out, it's that you don't have the energy or the inclination. And it's not that you don't have time to cook, it's that you don't have energy. Furthermore, you feel like you need a pick-me-up, something that can help you to get yourself up and running again. And fish just isn't going to cut it. Now, in the next video, we're going to take a look at the most simplistic and efficient way to lose weight. This is straightforward calorie tracking. We'll see why this can work and why it's really just very simple math. But I want you to keep this video in the back of your mind, because we're going to be coming back to it. You're going to see later on that your lifestyle makes it hard to cut calories, and that you need to have a rethink if you're going to win this war on your belly. The role of hormones in weight loss. If you look around the web for advice on how to lose weight, you'll find that people fall into two broad camps. There are those that believe weight loss is entirely dictated by that caloric deficit we just discussed, and there are others that feel there are other, more important factors at play. Let's take a look at some criticisms of the calorie deficit approach to dieting. Problems with the deficit. It is certainly true that your body needs to burn fat for energy once it has run out of other sources. It is certainly true that if you have no other means of getting that energy, you will lose fat stores and eventually you lose weight. This really is simple math, cause and effect. But the problem comes with calculating that magic AMR, active metabolic rate. These calculations are rough guesses at best, and they are based on nothing more than your physical features. The best calculations take into account your muscle mass, which is metabolic active. But even these don't take into account underlying issues such as the balance of your hormones. Simply put, some hormones help you to burn fat faster, and some help you to burn fat slower. These are directly responsible for how many of those processes that require energy are going on in your body at any given time, and how capable your body is of utilizing the various stores of energy available to it. Just a few of these hormones include cortisol, insulin, thyroid hormones, T3 and T4, adrenaline, serotonin, leptin, ghrelin, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, IGF-1, human growth hormone, and many more. The problem is that we all have different balances of these hormones. These hormones are in constant flux and are affected by everything from what we're eating at the time and how stressed we are to how much sleep we've had and how sunny it is. Some people have imbalances in these hormones that are permanent, while others will use medications that can alter them. Those fitness gurus that ignore the role of hormones in weight loss can't explain why hypothyroidism or polycystic ovaries leads to weight gain. They also can't explain why using steroids builds muscle and burns fat. You may not have a condition like hypothyroidism, but the point to recognize is that these conditions are not really binary. You don't have to have or not have a condition, but rather, you can view everyone as existing somewhere along the spectrum. You might have a slightly lower production of thyroid hormones than someone else, or you might be higher in testosterone. This is why some people lose fat very easily, and it is why some people struggle to lose it. That's also why things tend to get harder for us as we get older. And it's why things get harder for us as we become more stressed and more tired. All of this upsets our hormone balance and puts our bodies into fat storage modes. The issue is not with a calorie deficit, but rather our ability to accurately calculate our own AMR. Not only that, but these hormones also play a very big role in why we struggle to lose weight. They make us hungry, low in energy, and depressed. And they contribute directly to fat storage around the midriff. This is before we take into account the fact that it is essentially impossible to calculate the precise number of calories burned. Heart rate alone is not a perfect correlate for calories burned, or the number of calories in any given item of food. You really think that every single apple has the precise same number of calories in it? Are you sure you're really adding precisely the same amount of sauce to your meals? Then there's another fallacy of the calories in-out diet, which is the notion that our calories somehow magically reset at the end of the day, that we can make sure we're in a calorie deficit on Monday and then start again on Tuesday. In reality, the buildup of calories is cumulative and can be carried over. And then there's the way that eating in itself can affect your hormonal balance and process the foods that are coming in, the cycles of the body. Not only does everyone have different balances of hormones in the long term, but we all also go through cycles where different hormones peak. This is useful information to know if you want to try and make it as easy as possible to encourage weight loss, because it means you can time your consumption of food to coincide with points when your metabolism is fastest. And you can try to diet the hardest at points when you're less likely to be hungry. For example, when you wake up first thing in the morning, your body is in a fasted state. This is simply because you have just gone the last 8 hours without eating anything, thereby meaning you have very low blood sugar. How does the body interpret this? It interprets it as danger. In other words, your body will now react by telling you need to eat, and you need to eat fast. If you don't get food into your system quickly, then you might starve. Remember, as far as your body is concerned, you're still surviving out in the wild. Thus, your low blood sugar will trigger a release of cortisol, the stress hormones that will motivate you to go and find food. This is also what makes us grumpy in the morning. You'll release sugar from the stores into the blood, and you'll produce ghrelin, the hunger hormone. This also triggers the release of myostatin, a chemical that tells the body to burn muscle and use it as fuel. In other words, you're now in a catabolic state. This is further enhanced by the light coming in through the window, which wakes us by triggering the release of cortisol and nitric oxide in the brain. Once you've eaten, though, things change. Now sugar is released immediately into your body, which the body sees as good news. This triggers the release of serotonin, a feel-good hormone, followed by melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. This is why we often feel sleepy after a large meal. Now, your brain becomes slower and groggier, and you feel happier. But countless other activities can similarly alter your hormone balance. As it gets darker, for instance, we release more of the sleep hormone, melatonin. Likewise, if we're in a good mood and having fun with friends, we release more serotonin. Likewise, when we work out, this triggers the release of stress hormones, followed by anabolic hormones like growth hormone and testosterone to trigger growth. Ultimately, the body is constantly swinging between an on state called catabolic, or fight and flight, and an off state called anabolic, or rest and digest. When the body is hungry, harmed, or threatened, you become more alert and produce more stress hormones. At this point, you burn your energy stores because you need to keep going. But when the body is relaxed or you've eaten a satiating meal, that's when you're more likely to store fat and build muscle. The issue is where the next huge factor comes in: lifestyle. We'll look at that in the next video. But first, the roles of carbs and fats. As mentioned, the timing of your food and the way you eat can have a big impact on your hormonal balance. Likewise, the hormonal balance can have a big impact on the way that you're eating. For example, If you eat first thing in the morning, you break your fast. That is to say that you take yourself out of a catabolic state where the body is desperate for food and is burning fat. Some people will then try to extend this catabolic state for as long as possible as a trick to burn more fat. They might even engage in something called fasted cardio, which means that they'll work out first thing in the morning, before breakfast, so that the only thing available to burn is stored fat. Another trick is something called carb backloading. Here, you engage in intensive exercise designed to deplete the glycogen stores. Then you consume carbs, and as a result, they will be more likely to be stored in the muscle cells rather than being stored as fat. But the technique that most people are interested in is to avoid simple carbohydrates altogether. Simple carbohydrates are any carbs that release their energy immediately into the blood. These tend to be the sweetest carbs like sugar, cake, and white bread. By eating these, you cause a sudden spike in blood sugar, which triggers the release of insulin and puts your body into a fat storage mode. If you avoid these simple carbs, however, then you can maintain more of an equilibrium and thereby prevent your body from storing the energy. Instead, you'll simply be replenishing your blood sugar as it is being used up. This is the objective of many low-carb dieters, who will instead rely on complex carbohydrates and fats, which digest much more slowly and therefore release sugar into the blood at a slower rate as well. Some low-carb dieters and fasters will go even further to try and reduce blood sugar to the point that the body begins producing an alternative energy source, ketones. Do you need to worry about this? Is any of it relevant for losing your belly? Don't worry. Everything will be explained into a simple-to-follow program very shortly.